Well, we don't see a lot of Melania, but she's also been on a media tour this week. Fox News, social media, your kid's piano recital. The campaign has brought out a very special surrogate, Melania Trump, her first lady, and the only Slovenian you can name off the top of your head. Now, obviously, she's out there because she's a supportive wife who believes in her husband's America first. I'm f***ing with you. She has a book to sell.
What happens when you ask Trump supporters for marriage advice? I went to a MAGA rally with one simple question. What should Trump do to improve his marriage with Melania? Their answers left me speechless. One guy wearing an American flag cape told me Trump should grab her by the heart, while a woman with a bedazzled MAGA hat suggested he should tweet more compliments about her. Meanwhile, just last week, Trump couldn't even remember Melania's name during a speech in Pennsylvania. The cognitive dissonance is truly something to behold. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. So I headed out to a Trump rally to ask the MAGA faithful for some relationship advice. What better place to get marriage tips than from people who worship a man with 3 marriages under his belt? Jordan Klepper style. Let the contradictions reveal themselves without pointing them out too obviously. Excuse me, do you have any advice for how President Trump could improve his marriage to Melania? I asked a woman decked out in a bedazzled MAGA hat that probably had more sparkle than the Trumps' relationship. Improve? They don't need to improve anything, she shot back, genuinely offended. They have the most beautiful marriage in presidential history. The media lies about everything. This became a common theme. Trump supporters insisted the Trumps have a perfect fairy tale marriage despite all evidence to the contrary. You know, evidence like those countless videos of Melania swatting away Trump's hand, or her looking like she'd rather be anywhere else on earth whenever they appear together. One guy in a "Make Liberals Cry Again" shirt offered this gem. Trump should tweet more compliments about Melania. Women love public displays like that. When reminded that Trump got permanently banned from Twitter until Elon Musk let him back on, he blinked twice and said, "Well, Truth Social then, same thing." The cognitive dissonance reached Olympic levels when I showed a group of supporters that clip from the Pennsylvania rally where Trump completely forgot Melania's name mid-sentence. "That's just him being funny," insisted a woman wearing a "Women for Trump" shirt. "They have the best communication of any presidential couple ever." The same woman continued, without a hint of irony, "He should listen more to his wife. That's what my husband does, and we've been married 42 years. Meanwhile, her shirt featured a slogan suggesting women should be in the kitchen making sandwiches. The lack of self-awareness was almost impressive. One particularly enthusiastic supporter suggested Trump should grab her by the heart, not just on the campaign trail. He delivered this line with a wink and elbow nudge, completely missing how his advice accidentally referenced Trump's infamous Access Hollywood tape. I almost felt bad following up with, "So you think he should focus more on emotional connection rather than physical attributes?" The confused look on his face was priceless. Klepper's technique of allowing subjects to reveal their own contradictions shows exactly why he's so effective. Unlike interviewers who directly challenge their subjects, Klepper creates a space where people expose their own logical inconsistencies. His blend of Daily Show snark with a show-don't-tell approach makes his segments both entertaining and revealing. As our conversations continued, I showed supporters photos of Trump consistently forgetting Melania exists at official functions. "That's just the fake news angle," explained a man whose t-shirt read, "Trump finally, someone with balls. They only show the bad moments. They have the best marriage, really beautiful. Everybody says so." The real magic happened when I asked follow-up questions. What's your advice for a president who allegedly sleeps in a different bedroom than his wife? The uncomfortable squirming began immediately. "Well, lots of couples do that for health reasons," stammered one supporter. "Maybe he snores. My husband snores like a chainsaw." When pressed about rumors of marital troubles, the responses got increasingly fantastic. "They're playing 4D chess with the media," explained a man with an American flag cape. "Making people think there's trouble when they're actually stronger than ever. It's strategy." A woman wearing Trump earrings offered this advice: he should respect her more in public. Seemingly unaware of the many videos where Trump walks ahead of Melania, leaves her behind in the rain, or talks over her. When I gently pointed this out, she didn't miss a beat. "That's just how powerful men act. My husband does the same thing, and we've been married 30 years. The pattern became clear. When confronted with evidence that contradicted their perception, supporters either denied reality entirely or created elaborate explanations that preserved their worldview. This perfectly illustrates how Klepper's interviews expose not just hypocrisy, but the psychological mechanisms people use to maintain unwavering support despite contradictory evidence. Even when shown clips of Trump making comments about other women's appearances while married to Melania, supporters found ways to justify it. "That's just his way of being friendly," explained one woman. "Melania understands his personality. They have an agreement." That supposed agreement between the Trumps took on a whole new meaning when I started sharing Trump's actual quotes about women with his supporters. The mental gymnastics I witnessed would make Olympic gold medalists jealous. Turns out, when confronted with the man's own words, these folks suddenly developed interpretive skills that would impress even the most creative literary scholars. "So you just told me Trump should respect women more," I said to a guy wearing a Stars and Stripes bandana. "What about when Trump said, and I'm quoting directly here, 'You have to treat women like His face contorted like he'd just bitten into a lemon. "Well, that's taken out of context. He was probably talking about how other guys do that, not how he does it." The quote continues with, "Or they'll walk all over you," I added. "See? That proves my point. He's just giving advice about how to be a strong man. Melania respects that. That's why they're still together." When I showed another supporter a printed card with Trump's quote comparing women to buildings, beauty and elegance, whether in a woman, a building, or a work of art, is not just superficial, she nodded enthusiastically. "That's beautiful. He's saying women are like fine architecture. That's a compliment." I pointed out the obvious. "He's literally comparing women to inanimate objects." No, he's saying women have depth. You're twisting his words." She smiled triumphantly, completely missing the point.
You know, people make a lot of jokes about this marriage, but when I look at their shared love of exploiting our political system to sell shit for personal profit, prepared to go down to his office on Wednesday morning, he and I had a private moment. "Congratulations," I said. "What an achievement. All those other people. And you won. You're the President of the United States of America. And you're the First Lady," he said. "Good luck."
The real showstopper came when I reminded a man in a Make America Great Again hat about the infamous grab them by the punny tape. This was the same guy who had just lectured me about how Trump needed to show more gentle leadership in his marriage. "That was just locker room talk," he said, waving it away. "All men talk like that in private. It doesn't mean anything." "So you talk about women that way?" "Well, no, not me personally. I respect my wife too much for that." "But you just said Trump should respect his wife more." His eyes darted side to side like he was searching for an emergency exit. Trump is Trump. He's a billionaire. Different rules. An elderly woman with an American flag brooch nearly popped a blood vessel defending Trump's multiple marriages. "He was finding his way to Melania," she insisted. "God brings us through different relationships until we find the right one." Then, without a hint of irony, she added, "The Democrats are destroying family values in this country." When I showed supporters photos of Trump standing uncomfortably close to various women over the years, the rationalizations flowed like cheap wine at a wedding. "He's a hugger," one woman explained. "Some people are just physical. It's his love language." A man wearing enough American flag merchandise to clothe a small patriotic village insisted that the media edits everything when I showed him direct quotes from Trump's interviews about women. When I pointed out these were published in magazines Trump himself had praised at the time, he simply repeated, "fake news," as if those two words were a magical incantation that could make inconvenient facts disappear. The cognitive dissonance reached its peak when I asked supporters if they would accept the same behavior from their own spouses that Trump displays toward Melania. "Of course not," said one woman. "My husband would be sleeping in the garage if he talked about other women the way Trump does." "So why is it okay for Trump?" "Because..." She paused, searching for the right words. "Because he's the president. He has bigger things to worry about." A middle-aged man in a Trump 2024 hat summed up the contradiction perfectly. "Look, I want someone running the country who isn't afraid to speak his mind. What happens in his marriage is between him and Melania." "But you just gave me advice about what should happen in their marriage," I reminded him. "That's different," he insisted, though he couldn't explain how. The most revealing moment came when I interviewed a couple who had been initially eager to offer relationship wisdom. When confronted with Trump's history, the husband shrugged. "Nobody's perfect. Trump's a human being." "Would you accept these imperfections in your own marriage?" I asked his wife. Her hesitation spoke volumes. "No, but that's different." "Different how?" "We're not saving America." This pattern repeated with alarming consistency. The same supporters who moments earlier insisted marriage required respect, honesty, and fidelity were suddenly moral relativists when it came to Trump's behavior. These weren't just political supporters. They were performers in an elaborate act of psychological self-protection, bending reality to avoid contradicting their political identity. I uncovered something truly magical in these rally interviews, a psychological hack that exposes what Trump supporters really think about their hero's behavior. If you've ever wondered what happens when someone's political loyalty clashes with their personal values, this is where things get juicy. Here's what I did. I asked Trump supporters about marriage values without mentioning who we were talking about. What would you think about a husband who has affairs while his wife is pregnant? The responses were downright biblical in their condemnation. "That's disgusting behavior that no real man would ever do," said one woman with an American flag scarf while clutching her pearls. "A man who treats his wife that way has no moral compass. He's certainly not someone I'd want leading anything." A middle-aged guy in camo enthusiastically told me, "Marriage is sacred. If you can't honor your vows before God, you can't be trusted with anything else. Period." He actually pounded his fist on his chest for emphasis while saying this. I almost felt bad knowing what was coming next. The real comedy gold happened when I started sprinkling in specific details that mirrored Trump's actual marriage history. A man wearing a Faith Family Freedom shirt declared, "Any guy who cheats on multiple wives and brags about it deserves to be alone. That's not Christian values." When I asked about a hypothetical businessman with 3 marriages who had an affair with an adult film star while his third wife was at home with their newborn, another supporter shook his head in disgust. "That's the kind of moral bankruptcy destroying this country," he said, completely unaware he was describing his favorite president's actual life choices. One woman in a bedazzled patriotic hat was particularly passionate. "Communication and honesty are absolutely the foundation of marriage." She went on for nearly 2 minutes about the importance of respect in relationships while wearing a button featuring Trump's face right over her heart. The irony was so thick you could frost a cake with it. The real art came in watching how long it took for the realization to hit. I'd carefully add more Trump-specific details until that moment of uncomfortable recognition dawned on their faces. Like watching someone slowly realize they've been chewing gum they found under a table. What about a wealthy man who compares women to buildings and brags about grabbing them? I asked one supporter who had just finished explaining how a real gentleman treats ladies. His face did this fascinating journey from righteous anger to confusion to defensive hostility in about 3 seconds. "Wait, are you trying to make this about President Trump? That's different. That was before." "Before what? Before he decided to run for office? Before they decided to support him? Before consequences applied? The timeline remains a mystery. Some supporters executed impressive mental gymnastics when they realized the trap. That was the old Trump, One woman insisted, as if infidelity has an expiration date. "He's been forgiven by God, so who am I to judge?" said another, conveniently appointing himself God's press secretary. Others preferred the anger route. One man in a flag-themed outfit immediately switched from condemning adultery to attacking me. "You media types are all the same, always twisting things." He had been happily twisting himself into a pretzel of hypocrisy just moments before, but apparently I was the problem. Several supporters simply walked away when cornered by their own words. One woman who had spent 5 minutes extolling the virtues of honesty in marriage actually pretended to get a phone call when I connected her statements to Trump's behavior. Her phone never rang, but apparently lying was suddenly acceptable in this specific context.
Now, obviously, she's out there because she's a supportive wife who believes in her husband's America first. I'm f***ing with you. She has a book to sell.
Melania.
Well, one of the things she...
Oh.
Does he ever sleep?
He doesn't sleep much. He does, of course.
Does he wear
needs to.
pajamas?
No.
No. What does he wear when he sleeps?
The beauty of this approach is how it reveals the enormous disconnect between personal values and political identity. When Trump's name isn't attached, these supporters have no problem identifying and condemning exactly the behaviors they excuse or deny when it's their candidate. It's like watching someone passionately argue against the existence of rain while standing in a downpour. As one rally wound down, I asked a final question. Is there anything that could change your mind about Trump's character? The most honest answer came from a man who had just finished contradicting everything he'd said 5 minutes earlier. He sighed, looked me straight in the eye and said, "Probably not. I've come too far to turn back now." What's truly fascinating about Klepper's interviews isn't just the laughs they generate, it's how they reveal something far deeper about American politics today. When confronted with contradictions, these MAGA fans don't reassess their support. They double down. The deeper pattern shows how political identity has hijacked personal values for many Americans. As our research shows, supporters have replaced their traditional moral guideposts with unwavering loyalty to Trump himself. This psychological shift gets amplified in social media bubbles where challenging perspectives rarely penetrate. One brutally honest supporter finally cut through the pretense, "I don't care what he does in his marriage, I just want him to fix the country." And there it is, the uncomfortable truth laid bare.